Howdy, folks. This here's Filbert. I'm sitting here in the barn of splanification, bringing y'all just a piece of my vast acquired wisdom gained by exhaustive time on the couch watching YouTube. And today, I want to bring you something of vast importance, because we all know the coming apocalypse is going to be here in no time, and there's going to be a probably mushroom clouds going everywhere, and there's all going to be a lot of bad stuff poisoning just poisoning the ground, and I want to encourage y'all today to get busy and can you some dirt, so that you can have good dirt to grow, and you can probably grow two tomato plants in this. And even though the world goes crazy, we'll have enough to grow a little bit of our stuff and survive a little longer than the next guy. And that is all the purpose, right? Amen. I'll tell you, we just got to get ahead of all of these other people that just ain't got no understanding. Sounds silly? Sounds stupid? Actually, that's a costume we used for a vacation Bible school and promotion. And that was from Filbert Thaddeus Lardenfarter III, and he promoted the coming of VBS for years, and everybody loved him. And we never put him off as being stupid, though. Sometimes he misunderstood things, but he was never stupid. And I'll tell you what, our hillbilly, we call them hillbillies, but I'll tell you, our ancestry of mountain folk, they knew how to live. And the stuff I'm hearing today on the YouTube, we're going to talk a little bit about disinformation, and maybe we have it wrong. Maybe we are, we get all of this free advice and free information, but it could cost you a bundle in the end. And boy, canned dirt, we all know that doesn't make any sense. If the ground is poisoned, where are you going to put the dirt to grow what you're going to grow? Even in pots, if the ground is poisoned, so are you. It makes no sense. At the same time, we have people that have bought into the idea of having a can of hermetically sealed seeds from some seed vault somewhere of heritage seed, and they buy this can of mixed seeds. I don't doubt that those seeds were good when they were bought, but what happens is they put them up in the top shelf of their closet, and it falls to the back somewhere, and it's their insurance that when all of a sudden we have no food and there's great famine and shortage, they'll pull out that can, open it up, cast a few seeds out in some freshly turned dirt, and expect to stand back and have a garden bloom in front of them, rich and full of lots of food. I don't know about you, but my experience in gardening, it took me 3 good years to get my soil to the place where it could grow well. And if you're gardening in an area that has good soil, it still takes about 3 years to get your garden really producing well. That's if you're really busy about it. It's not easy. It doesn't come fast. There's a ton of learning that comes with growing a garden, and a ton of wisdom that only comes by getting dirt under your fingernails. And at the same time, we get the idea that we go out and buy our plants, bring them home, put them in the ground with commercial fertilizers, and we think, oh boy, we're a great gardener. Well, what are you going to do if you can't get fertilizer? What are you going to do if there are no start plants to buy? Have you ever tried starting plants from seed? And if you're buying those plants, most often what you're buying is hybrid plants. And if you even know how to gather seed from those plants, do you know how to preserve them and how to start them in the next plant? If you do, you're going to find a far different plant than what you began with, because heritage seeds reproduce after their own kind, but hybrid seeds don't. And so it's important to get the right kind of seed. And then it's important to get to grow the right kind of seed next to favorable plants. Do you realize if you grow, I have a bunch of sugar pumpkin seeds, and I have several years supply of them. That's because last year I only grew sugar pumpkins, and they had no other plants to cross pollinate with. But you have to be careful what other kinds of squash and what other kinds of varieties of the same plant that you grow, because they'll cross pollinate, and pretty soon you don't have the original heritage seed anymore. So it's important to know how to raise those plants. There's a lot of learning that's got to come into play before we're going to be successful at this stuff. I'm not saying that it's beyond you. It's not. You can acquire these skills, but don't fall for YouTube or any other promotions that try to convince you that they have an easier way for you to do it. Do you know how to do your own, how to make and manufacture your own fertilizer? We haven't bought fertilizer for our garden in years, and it produces very well. We don't buy it because we have goats that make it, and we have chickens that produce it. And I'm working on a lawn fertilizer. We all know that chicken droppings are very high in nitrogen, which is what a lawn needs to be green and lush. And you can't seem to find that stuff, or if you can, it's very expensive. So what I'm going to do is get foundry sand or concrete sand. It's a coarse ground sand. And I'm going to put that in my cement mixer and throw a couple scoops of chicken fertilizer in there. Get it to turning so it all mixes together, and the coarse sand sort of grinds up that chicken droppings until it's all mixed together uniform. And then I'm going to put it in my broadcast spreader and fertilize my lawn. You know what? That's going to work fabulously. And I'm going to have to work with proportions to know how much sand to how much of the chicken manure, because if you put too much chicken manure, it'll burn your grass. And so, I'll sacrifice one row, and I'll put one stripe with this and one stripe with that, and I'll figure it out. That takes time, but in the end, I'll have great fertilizer. But it doesn't come by following a YouTube video. It comes by working it, making it work, figuring it out. And it takes a lot to do that. The Pueblo, we have been pummeled with rewritten history. And we have been taught that all the Indians everywhere, they were kind, they were gentle, they were friends of nature, and they were the best managers of the land. That's just flat not true. The Inca, the Aztec, and the Maya, great mystery. Where did these civilizations of advanced cultures go? Well, they weren't so advanced, is the answer. Same thing with the Pueblo Indians. The mystery has been discovered. What they did was they moved from being a nomadic tribe that moved from place to place, and they had temporary homes, and they lived in, much like tents. They weren't all teepees, but they had temporary homes that were easily reconstructed. They didn't have a whole lot invested in them. And when the game moved on, if they followed the buffalo herds or what have you, then they moved on. And if the foraging grew sparse and there wasn't enough food to forage for, then they moved on. And when they went to agricultural production of their food, they learned to farm the land. They found that they could stay put and plant their own and make their own grow. And that worked pretty good. And when the game moved on and when the herds moved on, well, it wasn't so important because they could still make do with a lot less of that meat and a whole lot more of the produce that they were getting out of their own farming. And with that, they learned to build more substantial structures. Now, once they built more substantial structures, they had a lot invested in that home and in those towns. And there was a reluctance to move on. The problem was they didn't understand nutrition. and they stripped the land. They made it nutrient bare, and the food that they did produce was without good nutrition. I mean, it looked like it was less of a crop, but at least it looked like food. Trouble is, it wasn't satisfying the needs of their bodies, and they grew weaker. And when they finally figured out that they had to move on, it was too late. They were too weak. And basically, very few ever survived. It destroyed 4 complete civilizations of people because they did not understand nutrition. And you know what I'm seeing today? I'm seeing the same thing happening to you and me and being broadcast on YouTube, and I want to give you a warning about it. The thing that I'm seeing that triggered all of this, I was talking to Brad from Big Family Homestead. By the way, watch their channel. It's if you're not subscribed to Big Family Homestead, do it. Brad and Krista are really good in teaching you how to homestead and all of the. And besides that, they put a lot of real life into it. And so you're going to follow along as you watch their life. And guess what? You're going to learn something. And they teach you about nutrition and about how to do things smart. Well, I saw something the other day on the internet, how to do something not so smart. And we all know that there is trouble in the European continent right now. And probably a large percent of our wheat comes from there. This is the wheat production heart of the European continent, of all of Euro-Russia and the whole continent, and probably the world, because a large percentage of our wheat comes from there as well. The large when you buy flour in the grocery store, a lot of those grains came from the heartland of the Ukraine. All right. Well, we are told, and we understand, the price of flour is going to go up greatly. It's already going up. Price of everything is going up. And they said, we depend on so much on flour for everything. We need to preserve flour. Let me tell you something. That's bad advice. It may be free advice, but it's going to cost you. Because flour, what you have to understand is that the kernel of wheat, it's called a wheat berry, and it has 3 parts. It has a bran, which is the outer shell. Then it has a kernel, which is where the flour comes from. And then in the very heart, there is a part called the germ. And just like an egg, there are 3 parts. Just like a wheat berry, there are 3 parts. God separated them for a reason. There has been grain wheat that was found in tombs in Egypt that was easily a couple thousand years old. And they took it out and germinated it, or, watered it, let it, put it in soil and let's see what it'll do. And they got like a 40 or 50% germination rate. And it has brought back, and you're now seeing on the flour places, ancient grains, where they are bringing back these ancient wheats that were used in Egypt at the time. And, I'm not sure they're better or anything different. They are different. And, I'll go for it. But I don't know that they're any more nutritious than the grains that we have today. But it's interesting that grain stayed viable for 2,000 years. Why do you think that is? It's not because it was a super grain. It's because it was left as a whole grain. I don't mean whole grain flour. I mean it was not broken up and cracked. Because there is a process that begins the very moment that the germ is mixed with the kernel. And when that happens, that oiliness of the germ mixes with the kernel, and it begins releasing the nutrition of the grain. Well, there's a problem. The problem is that it begins to oxidize the nutrition away. It first releases it for you, and then after time it releases it from you. And the flours that we buy in the grocery store, let me tell you this, there's not a lot of nutrition left in that. There's a whole lot of that nutrition that is gone. We have stored whole wheat berries, and we have wheat grinding machines, hand-operated wheat grinders, if you will, wheat mills, and we can turn whole grain wheat into fine flour. And it's not only can be electric, you can use an electric motor to turn it, you can use a bicycle to turn the wheel, or you can turn it by hand, and I've done that a lot. And I have produced fine flour, made bread. Oh my goodness, it tastes so good. And it tastes so different than the flour you get in the grocery store, because what you get in the grocery store tastes kind of sterile, kind of empty. Especially the bread you buy in the grocery store. You might as well throw the bread away and eat the wrapper compared to the flavor of home-baked bread. But home-baked bread doesn't last. I mean, especially not around our place. It goes as fast as the butter can melt. But when the bread sits on the counter, after like a week, probably it'll start to mold. Why do you think that is? Because there's a lot of nutrition for the mold to feed on. Why does store-bought bread last longer? Well, because there's not a lot of nutrition for the mold to grow on. So what serves marketing is to remove that nutrition. What serves you is to have that nutrition in there. I mean, we're talking about what's going to keep you alive. You can eat empty food and die of basically starvation. You can eat all you want, but you're still starving because your body isn't getting the nutrition that it needs. And I saw one video about a week ago that just blew me away. And here is this person who appears to be very, very country, very understanding of preparedness, and this person had purchased lots of 25-pound bags of flour right straight from the store, and proceeded to teach this person's listeners how to first of all freeze it and get rid of any bugs that might be in it, and then vacuum pack it and put it away, and made the statement that they have opened up flour that was stored 5 years ago and had no problems with it. It worked just fine. I bet it did. You could probably do the same thing with sawdust. There was probably no nutrition left in that stuff. It was white. It made a loaf of bread. It rose. It looks like it's acting like bread, but you're not getting any nutrition out of it. I am told that once you mix the bran with the germ, over 40% of the nutrition is gone in 24 hours. If you want to really get into making fresh bread, or making bread that will be highly nutritious, which is going to be very important if things turn bad, then you need to have wheat and a mill to make flour. And you need to make your flour on demand as you need it. How do we do it today? How do I do it? Sure, I buy store-bought flour. Most of the nutrition has gone out of it by the time I make my bread, but I'm getting a lot of nutrition from other sources. But if things turn bad, I need to get all the nutrition I can out of everything that I eat. And I need to make my bread out of fresh ground flour. And it makes all the difference in the world. It's really important. We're getting a lot of bad information that's being put out over the internet at a time when you're going to need it most. You're going to get the least. And that's just not the way to do it. Fats and oils. We're being told that coconut oil is the most stable, longest lasting oil out there. Well, I just saw a list of how long do oils last when kept properly. And you know what? Hydrogenated Crisco. I wouldn't recommend it. But that stuff lasts 5 years on the shelf. No special treatment at all. Hydrogenated oils are, the reason they do that is because it extends their shelf life. And substantially. It doesn't do your veins any good, and you'll probably kill yourself of a heart attack someday, but that oil will last a lot longer that way. I don't recommend it. But peanut oil lasts 3 to 4 years. If you store it in, by the way, in all of these, you need to store oils in a glass container with a tight sealed stopper. Can be a cork, it doesn't matter. But they need to be with very little air in there and in a dark glass bottle. And if you don't have a dark glass bottle, you can spray paint the glass. Grab a rattle can out of Walmart and go spray the glasses away, and it will keep the light out, because there's 3 things that cause oils to go rancid, and that's oxygen, exposure to the air, light, too much light, or heat. And how many people you know store their bottle of oil on the back shelf right over the stove? Not a good place to put it. Or right handy in the cupboard just above the stove where all that heat goes. Yeah, not a good place to keep your oils. Oils last longer in the refrigerator, but we don't like to do that. So why not have a large container of oil and a small one for daily uses? That way you're opening that large container only to fill the small container, and you're not opening that large container every time you need a tablespoon of oil. There's a good idea. But peanut oil, 3 to 4 years. Olive oil can last 3 years. And this was just one list. Numbers vary, but the order of which ones, the longevity of advertised may change, but the order of which one goes rancid first is pretty stable. And then palm oil, well, 2 to 3 years. It's not as good as olive oil. Safflower oil is only 1 to 2 years, as is sunflower, canola, and coconut oil. Just a couple years. That's it. But yet we are told to go buy scads of coconut oil because it'll last forever. It doesn't last forever. I don't care where you put it. I was talking yesterday. I put up some pork, and instead of putting it up as barbecued pulled pork with all the seasonings and all the flavors and all the everything in there, I just packed pulled pork. I cooked it with no seasonings. I packed it in the jars, and I canned it. And, well, I half cooked it. I know how long it takes in the pressure canner or in the pressure cooker to make it easily cut into chunks. And then I know how long I'm going to pressure can it. And I combined those two, and I got the amount that I have done in the past successfully to make pulled pork. And so that worked fine for me. But instead of doing like I did my pork and beans, in this case, I just packed meat. No salt, no flavorings, no nothing. Just cooked meat. Now I've got a jar of canned meat that I can do anything with. And because it's already pulled and separated and that, I can add all of the flavors to make barbecued sandwiches. I can make pulled pork without any of those flavorings. I can flavor it differently and make some great quesadillas. And you can put that pork on almost anything. You can put it in a grilled cheese sandwich. Believe me, there are many ways you can season up that pork for different ways. And I'm not locked into one dish because I seasoned it all up with barbecue. You see what I mean? We need to move away from canning convenience meals. You know, this, and I hear this again. These people trying to teach you how to prepare, and then they talk about, and this stuff is so great because you come home and you're tired, you just open this up and you got a ready-made meal. Well, how much does it take to throw a little seasoning in it? And now you don't have a ready-made meal as much as you have a ready-for-anything meal. You can make, from the same jar, you can make a variety of different meals because you didn't condition it for just one. So when I do my preparedness canning, I prepare seasonings and spices, as well as the target for those. But when I can pork, it's just pork. Now, another idea is get bits and pieces, packs of bacon, and put those in jars and can some bacon. Man, that's great seasoning, and it'll last, 10 years anyway. That stuff works great. And bits and pieces are cheaper than the thick slice bacon you buy in the top shelf by a lot. It's at least half the price. And it seasons things very well. So I do that kind of stuff. Probably one of the greatest oils that you can that makes such good sense is lard. And I was, when I can meats, if there's a little bit of room on top and it's not a particularly fatty meat where there will be a lot of oils in it, then I add a little bit of oil on top, because when I open that thing, I may want to fry it. And if I want to fry it, I'll need a little oil. So it's all in there already. It's ready to go. But if you're canning pork, a lot of times there's fat in there. And when you pour the broth in to the jars with the meat, make sure it contains a lot of that lard in there, so that you have a good layer of lard on top. And then that lard is useful for anything. So unless it's flavored, unless you put garlic and onion and cumin and all of those other flavors, now all you've got is lard that's suitable for, cooking tacos or something. So you keep your ingredients simple and pure. Store spices in another means or another manner, and mix them as needed to get your variety. This is thinking ahead a little bit, because you're going to get pretty tired of pork and beans if that's the only beans you canned. I've got some that are pork and beans all spiced up, but I'm also canning away pinto beans. And, I think what I'm going to do with those is can them as whole beans, ranchero beans. And if I want refried beans, I'll make them refried beans after I open the can whenever. Because I may not want ranchero beans. I may want refried beans. Or I may not want refried beans. I may want them ranchero beans. You know what I mean? Same thing with black beans, red beans, navy beans. I don't make all my navy beans into pork and beans, all spiced up and seasoned. I've got a lot of them. because I like them. We use a lot of that. But we don't have to put, you don't need all those beans made up into a particular spiced up, seasoned up package. You've got them that you can, man, if you do them right, I mean, think about this. If you've got a salad, you can sprinkle black beans in there. How are you going to make a taco salad if all your black beans have been turned into refried beans, or your pinto beans turned into refried beans? You can do them both ways. How are you going to do red beans and rice if all your red beans are seasoned up for something different? You know, I keep them straight, and I put the seasonings on the side ready-made. It works. It works for me. But just understand, the killer of your oil is oxygen, light, and heat. And you know what? Same thing kills seeds. Learn to plant your seeds. Learn to grow from seed. Learn to garden. Learn to get your own fertilizer from natural sources. Learn to compost. All of those things which cut the ties to an infrastructure that we're expecting to fail. Anyway, I hope this helps. And remember, can you some dirt? Don't. Just do what works. And think about it. A lot of times these YouTube good recommendations, good suggestions are bad suggestions. And they appeal to us because it means, well, that means I don't have to buy, maybe a flour mill. I don't have to work as much. I could just open it up and it's ready-made and easy. Our ancestors didn't have an easy life, but they had a good one. And don't think that if you're of a preparedness mindset that it's going to be easy, because it's not. It's going to be hard. I do not look forward to what I think is coming. But if you don't prepare, working as hard as you can won't be good enough, because you won't have the resource to work with. So, amen. Love you guys. Hope this all works. Give me a line. Oh, look at that. I forgot to comb my hair. Give a comment. Leave us a comment. Subscribe. Tell your friends. What have you. Hope we entertained you well. God bless.